Hello. Who are you? Doesn't matter. Welcome. You're safe with me. I'll be right here, nice and close so I can speak without alerting the others. Let me tell you about Senua. Her story has already come to an end, but now it begins anew.
Hello once again, players of good video games. My name is Nick Pell, and this is my review of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This game comes from Ninja Theory, the studio which created DMC, Devil May Cry, Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, and Heavenly Sword. I have played 2 out of those 3 games, DMC and Enslaved. I very much enjoyed them both. This game is the first game that the studio has released in the last 5 years, and it was honestly not on my radar for the most part until just very recently, until I just decided on a whim to pick it up based on some reviews that I saw. So does this game stand out as a unique title amongst the cluster that we are going to get dropped on this very shortly, or does it just feel like another God of War ripoff? Let's find out.
What is she looking at? What is she leaving behind? I know what she's thinking. I hear her thoughts. It's not too late to get into the boat and go back. No one will judge her. No one will ever know. Oh, she heard us. There's no going back. You can't do it.
Starting off with the story, the very beginning opening scenes of this game, in which you see Senua just paddling a canoe down this river, getting to this Norse mythology-esque place. You just get this extremely creepy and disturbing vibe as you hear voices circling around her, whispering doubt into her ears and telling her to turn back and telling her that she will die if she continues. This is just the introduction of how this game decides to deal with mental illness, and it plays a huge factor throughout the whole 6 to 8 hour time that you will spend on this game. And while I don't want to give anything away, because I did not know hardly anything before going into this game, besides the fact that it does touch on mental illness to some degree, it is a very well done way that it does it, especially after watching the behind the scenes video that I recommend watching after you finish the game, where they go into basically how they developed and how they spent a lot of time in consulting actual patients who have dealt with symptoms which are displayed through Senua in the game, as well as professional psychiatrists and doctors who help patients and deal with these things on a daily basis. It's very well done. It really makes me want to play through the game a second time just to really fully appreciate all the detail that went into that. That said, Senua as a character is very, very fun to play as. She doesn't have a ton of speaking roles, and she is pretty much the sole character that you see throughout the course of the game. You see her talking to herself, you see her speaking to the camera, to you through the screen almost, in a breaking the fourth wall type of way. But Senua as a character is someone who's very full of doubt, very full of distress, and again, a lot of that deals with the mental illness factors that the producers and makers of this game decided to really focus on and implement as showing these symptoms through Senua's perspective and creating this world around her. In regards to the graphics are gorgeous. They look top of the line. I do not have a PS4 Pro, but I can only imagine they look even better on that system. These are some of the best graphics I've seen so far this year out of this generation, and I rarely had any sort of issues with the graphics. There was one time where I was glitched out of an area in which I was supposed to be fighting a bunch of guys. I could not move around, and so I ended up dying, so that was a little bit frustrating. But for the most part, graphics were never really an issue. The gameplay is where I think a lot of people are going to be the most divided on this title, because it is a kind of steep climb they have to get to before you can really understand how to play this game well. There's no tutorial, but you can look at all the controls or basic controls through the pause menu. And while the enemies aren't necessarily difficult, it is very easy to find yourself back into a corner if you do not play your strategy well. Dodging is your friend, I will just say that. I was blocking for a good chunk of the first part of this game until I realized that dodging was a much better option. Another thing which is going to really divide people is the threat of permadeath. Pretty much an hour into this game, your character is inflicted with this curse, which every time that you die within the game, it slowly starts to spread up her arm, and if it reaches her head, you have to start from the very beginning of the game. You lose your save file, supposedly. I've seen conflicting reports on this. I don't know if it's 100% true or how exactly this thing would work. I personally did not get to that point. I did not die enough times, thankfully, to have to start over. That said, every death that you have in this game just heightens the tension for you, and especially when you get to a point during combat where you are very close to death, and you can tell at times because the screen will turn a certain way. That just heightens the tension, and it makes for a very fun, compelling element to the game because it really forces you to fight to survive. You don't have an unlimited amount of chances like you normally would in any other game. And normally something like a permanent system is something which would deter me from trying a title like this, but I think the fact that it was implemented how it was forced me to really get good at the combat in order to continue pursuing the game, because the story is so compelling and the game itself is just very, very intriguing, and I want to see how far I can end up getting without having to start over. Now that said, there are times where you will end up dying because either you fall off of a ledge, or enemies just end up killing you in combat, or you run towards a fire and not realize that you're not supposed to run towards the fire, and then you die, or you evaporate into nothingness in the darkness. There are very different ways that you can die throughout the course of this game. Some that you would expect and some that you wouldn't. And so it can be a little bit frustrating in that regard when it's not exactly clear what can kill you or what you're supposed to do sometimes. There are a good variety of puzzles as well in this game. Basically, you have a ruin which you focus on. You see that ruin, you have to find something in that environment which takes the same shape as that ruin which you are looking for. You find that, you match it, you can enter the door and continue on your way. There's also collectibles called rune stones which are throughout the game. There are 44 of them total. And as you continue throughout the game and find them, you have someone who is basically telling you Norse mythology, which is really, really neat for me as somebody who is really interested in that. So it kind of gives you an idea of where this possible series could be going if it gets future installments. Another minor issue that I found was that the subtitles, which I used and I used for most of my games, didn't always match what was being said on the screen. That's just a little bit frustrating for me as someone who's trying to follow those. Again, not a huge issue, something which can be easily fixed with an update or something like that, along with the glitches in the game, but something worth pointing out at this point. Hellblade: Senua Sacrifice is a hell of an experience, if anything. The journey that you go on with Senua throughout this 6 to 8 hour story is something which I will not forget about for a very long time because of how interesting and emotional and captivating it was as it dives into different aspects of mental illness, as well as focusing on this character who is on this journey of her own to try to avenge something which she feels responsible for. And while this is a title which I was not honestly expecting to even touch this year because I was not that much interested in it, to be honest, this is a title which I would expect to see on my top 10 list of this year. I don't know where because I have a lot of games coming out still, but I would expect to see it somewhere on there. It is that good. And I would highly recommend checking this out. It is $30 on the PSN store, as well as, I'm assuming, on Steam. Check this thing out, support the developers, and really try to appreciate what these people are trying to do with a title like this, because it is fantastic. But guys, those are my thoughts on Hellblade: Senua Sacrifice. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you like it as much as I did? Did you hate it more than I did? Let me know. Like, fair, comment, and subscribe once again if you so choose. I appreciate it immensely. And as always, merry people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on gaming.